you're going to puncture it. Water's going to start spewing everywhere. You're going to cuss. You're going to spend about 30 minutes trying to find a coupling to make that repair. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Friday, April 4th here in South Georgia, and this time of year we get a lot of questions about the drip irrigation system or systems we use in our backyard garden, so I figured it'd be a great time to talk about it. Now in this video I'm not going to show an install. I'll refer you to that video at the end of this video, but I want to tell you 12 things you should know about drip irrigation. Hopefully this will be helpful to people who are trying to decide if they want to implement a drip system in their garden, and also be helpful to people who are already using drip irrigation. And we're going to be using this plot here as an example today. You can see I've already planted my tomatoes here. We've got 3 rows, 2 rows of determinants. Got red snapper, BHN gold in that row, Firebird and Roadster in that row, and then our indeterminates over here, we've got some Turkey Creek and some Cherokee Carbon on that end. Now before we get into our list of 12, let's quickly go over why you would want to use drip irrigation in your backyard garden, or the benefits of using drip irrigation in your backyard garden. So number 1 would be water conservation, especially important if you don't have a well and have to pay a water bill every month. Number 2 is a lot easier to water with drip irrigation. I know this time of year the wind blows a lot around here. If I set up an overhead sprinkler, I might not get a real even distribution of water over one of my square garden plots. The wind might be blowing that overhead sprinkler all over the place. So with the drip irrigation, we just turn it on and let it go. Number 3, with drip irrigation, you're going to have less weeds because you're not watering those blank spaces between your rows. All that overhead water can really cause weeds to thrive. And number 4, you're going to get less plant disease when you're using drip irrigation, especially as the summer rolls around when it gets hot and humid. If you're accumulating a lot of moisture on those leaves via overhead irrigation, you're bound to have more disease issues. Now that we've covered those 4 reasons why you want to use it, let's get into our list of 12 that you came here to see. So the first thing you need to know about drip tape is that it has to run straight. You got to have straight rows if you're going to use drip tape. So the basic setup with almost any drip irrigation system is you've got this main line tubing here, or this supply line, which is going to feed your drip tape lines, and those drip tape lines need to be running straight. You can't bend them or turn them at a 90-degree angle because that's going to kink the tape. Got to have straight rows. So if you're one of those permaculture gardeners that just likes to kind of willy-nilly plant things here and there, and nothing wrong with that, my brain just doesn't work that way, but if you just like willy-nilly planting, drip tape probably isn't for you because you got to have straight rows. If you don't have straight rows, or you're just planting things here and there, drip tubing is probably a much better option for you. We're not talking about drip tubing in this video though, we're talking about drip tape. The second thing you need to know about drip tape is row length matters. Now all my garden plots are 30 by 35, and I always plant them this way, so my rows are never more than 30 foot long. But if you've got a much larger garden plot or plots, row length is definitely going to matter. Because if you've got rows longer than 100 feet, you're going to have to use a different size supply line or main line tubing. Now the one we use is 5/8 or 1/2 inch, depending on where you buy it from. But if you've got rows longer than 100 foot, you've got to use a larger diameter main line tubing to support those long rows. Additionally, if you've got long rows and quite a few of them, there might be a concern as to whether you've got enough flow coming from your water source to support or inflate all that drip tape at one time. And this is really easy to figure out. You just do the bucket test at your well or water source, see how long it takes you to fill up a 5-gallon bucket, do some quick math there, and get your gallons per minute from your water source. Then you figure out the output of your drip tape and see if you've got enough water to support all that tape you're planning to use. If you don't have enough water, then you may need to split your garden or gardens up in zones. May not be able to water it all at one time, may have to water one zone and then the next zone. Number 3, if you're using drip tape, you gotta have a filter. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. We use this very simple filter setup on all our plots there. So that yellow filter pulls out of that housing there, and you've got that cap that screws on. And you want to make sure you clean this at least once a month. Now, I have heard people claim that from time to time their drip tape gets clogged. However, in all my years of using drip tape, I have never seen a drip tape emitter get clogged. Not saying it can't happen, I've just never seen it happen. However, what can happen is your filter gets all gunked up and water doesn't flow through your system like it should. The drip tape lines don't inflate like they should. So if you think your drip tape emitters are clogged, check your filter first and then you can chase that rabbit. Number 4, in addition to that filter I just showed you, you've also got to have a pressure regulator. And these are very simple as well. The ones I use just thread on there between the filter and the T for my main line. I think I use a 10 psi pressure regulator. 12 will also work in most backyard gardens. So you've got to have the pressure regulator, otherwise it can blow out your drip tape lines. Just too much juice coming from your water source for those drip tape lines that don't need a ton of pressure. Number 5, when you're purchasing drip tape, choose the thicker tape. Go with something like a 15 mil thickness versus an 8 mil thickness. Now, I do have to mention that thicker tape is a little more rigid, a little more difficult to get the fittings on there the first time around, but over the long term, you'll be glad you got that thicker, more durable tape. So these lines that I have underneath those 3 rows of tomatoes and this line here that will be used to plant some peppers in the next day or two, I've had these lines for several years now. No telling how many times I've used these lines on many different vegetables in our backyard garden. That's why I like this 15 mil tape so much, because I can just reuse it over and over again. Also, the thicker tape, you're a lot less likely to nick this stuff when you're weeding around your plants. A lot less likely to poke a hole in this stuff as opposed to a thinner tape. And number 6, also when you're purchasing drip tape, go with something that has a closer emitter spacing. So for years I used nothing but drip tape with a 12-inch emitter spacing, and then a few years ago I made the switch to a 6-inch emitter spacing, and I will not go back. So one of the main reasons I like the 6-inch emitter spacing versus the 12-inch emitter spacing is I don't have to run the drip in a given plot for near as long. That's important during the heat of summer when I'm needing to water all 6 of these plots in a given day. I don't have to leave it on a plot for very long to get adequate soil moisture delivered there. Another reason I like the 6-inch emitter spacing, I believe it just keeps the plants happier. So these tomato plants here are planted on a 2-foot spacing. We've got a tape with a 6-inch emitter spacing. That means there are 3 emitters between each of these plants. Some people might think, well, you're just watering that blank space there. But if you've ever pulled up a tomato plant, you know that these plants are going to have feeder roots basically connecting with one another. So it's going to be like one large root mass down this row here. With those emitters between the plants, we're able to keep all those roots happy. Number 7, also when purchasing drip tape, I would recommend using a tape that has hard emitters in the tape, not just some holes punched in the tape. So if we look close at one of these emitters here, you see that kind of indented area around that hole? There's a hard piece of plastic behind that hole. That's what I mean by a hard emitter. I found that this P1 tape here with the hard emitters is just more reliable for me, just works better than tape that doesn't have the hard emitters, just has the holes poked in it. Number 8, when you're buying drip tape or mainline tubing, buy more than you think you're going to need. Don't sit there and measure everything out to the foot and buy exactly that amount of drip tape or mainline tubing. If you're doing this for the first time, you're going to mess up. And even though I've done this many times, there's always a little bit of waste there when you're trimming this stuff up, getting on the fittings and all that. So get more than you need, and you always have some extra on hand. The worst thing is needing to set up a drip system and then realizing, oh, I don't have enough tape or mainline tubing, and then you've either got to go out and buy some or wait for it to get shipped to your house. Number 9, as I showed you earlier, those emitters on the drip tape need to be facing upwards towards the sun. Now, for whatever reason, this is a hard concept for people to grasp because we do get asked this all the time. But the way drip tape was designed was for water to come out of those emitters and kind of spill over the sides of the tape. People think that it should be facing the ground. It's going to get delivered to the soil better that way, but it was designed so the emitters face upward and the water spills over the side of the tape. Number 10, another tough one for some people to grasp. Drip tape was designed to be buried. Long before I started using drip tape in my backyard garden, all these commercial farmers around here were using drip tape and they were burying it because that's how it was designed to be used, mainly burying it underneath plastic for planting things like tomatoes, peppers, watermelons, squash. Now it's a little hard to tell now because the rain this past weekend flattened this out a little bit, but we make a furrow about 4 inches deep or so and we lay the tape down in that furrow. If we're direct seeding, we go ahead and cover the tape completely so it's buried about 3 or 4 inches deep. If we're putting in transplants like we did on these tomatoes, I just bury it where I put my plants, and as we heal these tomatoes later, fertilize these tomatoes, put up our trellis, the rest of that exposed tape there will get covered. Number 11, if you're going to be using a lot of drip tape, you need a non-sharp garden tool to work around it. You don't want to be using something like this around your drip tape because what's going to happen is you're going to puncture it, water's going to start spewing everywhere, you're going to cuss, you're going to spend about 30 minutes trying to find a coupling to make that repair, and you're going to waste a lot of time you didn't have. So instead you need a dull garden tool to work around drip tape. I like using this single tine cultivator here. Yes, this does have a sharp point, but we're not jabbing at weeds around that drip tape. Rather, assuming this finger is the drip tape, we're using the blunt end just to kind of comb over the top of it there, just uprooting those weeds. So this tool here works well for that. A wire weeder would also work well. Just don't use anything sharp around your drip tape, and don't weed around your drip tape while it's running. You're much more likely to puncture it when it's inflated as opposed to when it's deflated. And lastly, number 12, if you're going to be installing drip tape, you need a good hole punch. So this is what punches the hole in that supply line so you can then insert your drip tape fittings. And if you go to an irrigation store, either locally or online, you might see lots of different hole punches out there. They are not all created equal. There are some sorry hole punches out there. The manual ones where you just push them in, I hate those. They might work for one season, but then they usually don't do a very good job. I like these that have kind of a trigger on them. This blue one right here from Drip Depot has worked really well for me. But even though this one works good, something to consider, after 2 or 3 years, it's going to get kind of rusty and dull there, and I'm going to have to replace it. So these things are not going to last you a lifetime, but get you a good one when you get one. So if you consider all those 12 things, I think you'll be a lot more successful either taking the plunge to start using drip irrigation in your garden, or maybe improving the way you use drip irrigation in your garden. Now, if you're wanting specific links for a lot of the stuff we use around here, I've got some blogs that I'll put in the description below. We've got a blog for our raised bed irrigation system, for our in-ground irrigation system, and even for our fig tree irrigation system. Each of those blogs has links to all the pieces we use to put everything together. And if you want to see a step-by-step install for an in-ground drip irrigation system like we have on these tomatoes back here, watch this video. We'll break it down step by step, show you how to put all the pieces together and give you some helpful tips along the way. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.